Man, I love that line from Drake. Welcome to another episode of Now It's Legal. He said, I ain't got to do it, but screw it. Somebody's got to do it. Hate if someone else did it. Damn, I may as well do it. And I start with that today because the reality is we didn't have to get athletes.org going, but somebody has to create the group for all college athletes to unite. For college athletes to, as one group, be able to talk to leaders at the school, conference, NCAA levels. And it's not going to be easy to build athletes.org. The first 7 months have been super challenging, but a lot of headwinds have become tailwinds. Why? Because court cases are continuously evolving and the writing is on the wall, the same way that the writing was on the wall when Ed O'Bannon beat the NCAA for NIL. 7 years before NIL happened, there were clues where leaders who were not thinking about their next contract, were not thinking about personal aspirations, but instead put their ambitions aside, could have innovated. And with innovating, could have created an NIL model that's a lot different than we have today. But that didn't happen. And here we are again with House versus the NCAA, with the NLRB cases, with the Johnson case. And once again, it's time to be proactive and innovate. College athletics leaders, you want to get protection from Congress? You have to have a deal agreed to with your athletes. And they need a group that they unite into to be able to negotiate that deal, whether it's revenue sharing terms or other benefits like medical coverage and beyond. And so I ain't got to do it, but screw it. Somebody's got to do it. So we may as well do it. That's athletes.org's premise. And that's what Brandon Copeland and our team are living out every day as we've now signed up more than 2,500 college athletes and focusing on power conference sports like men's basketball, women's basketball, and football, which make up a great majority of our membership, with team reps across 60 plus power conference teams. And so athletes are starting to realize they need to unite. And there's reasons for that. And our interviewee today is a big reason for that. Sedona Prince didn't have to do what she did. Sedona Prince didn't have to go build a TikTok following throughout COVID that became hundreds of thousands of followers and do it also on Instagram and other platforms so that she would be in a moment in time in 2021 when there were severe inequalities between women's and men's basketball March Madness tournaments. And she was able to expose those inequalities. And as you fast forward 3 years from then to today, and you look at where women's basketball is, there was a catalytic moment. And the catalytic moment starts with Sedona Prince. And so enjoy this one. It's going to be really good. Here's our next episode of Now It's Legal with Sedona Prince. Sedona, first off, thank you so much for making time. You're an athletes.org member athlete, team rep at TCU, but you're also somebody that's been working on a lot of the same things we've been working on here at athletes.org for years. And so I want to start in March 2021 in Texas, your home state where you're from, and your decision to bring the inequities between the women's and men's basketball tournaments for March Madness to light. How did that all happen? How did it all go down?
Yeah, so we're heading down to, it's my first NCAA tournament, so I'm excited, puppy dog eyes. We head into this big conference arena that they had turned into. It was COVID times, so they had to turn these, this big hotel into this arena they were playing in. Into these big conference rooms. We're walking in, and all of a sudden we had seen tweets and stuff of just this kind of just silly little weight room they put in. And we didn't believe it, right? We're like, no way this has happened. This can't be real. We're just, all joking online. And we walk into the arena, and boom, there it is. And the NCAA had put out a statement as well saying, oh, it was a room, or, we didn't have enough space. And so, of course, walking into these big conference rooms, we're like, that's not true. And so, I was kind of a little personally like, hey, this is not okay. I had been, kind of seeing the inequities that the NCAA had been, giving us for years and years, and been a part of the NCAA for 3 years at this point. And so I flipped the camera and started making a TikTok video.
And so as you're doing that, how much prep went into it, if at all? Like, did you just ad lib or were you like, all right, I want to make sure I highlight this. I want to make sure I highlight that.
Yeah, so I made a video before practice, and I actually have that draft somewhere, but it's me, same video, exactly the same, but I'm pretty angry in it. Like you can tell that I'm like, it's my emotions, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, and my God, like, just really, really mad. And so I was like, okay, let me just take a second and breathe, right? I don't know, this is a big video to post. Calling out the NCAA is something that's very scary. Let me just go through practice. So I went through the hour practice that we had, and then as our team was walking out, right? I already had, thought about things I wanted to say during practice and kind of cooled off and got my workout in. And so I reshot the video, as everyone's leaving and I'm kind of in a hurry. And that's the video that, everyone has seen today. So calming down and like collecting.
That's smart. And you obviously had a lot of big name athletes, men and women, really celebrate your message. Steph Curry being one that I remember off the top of my head. But, you probably also had athletes that you knew from your teammates to other teams in that bubble environment that we had during 2021's March Madness, that you probably talked to about what you had sent out and how they could engage with it, right?
Right, yeah, it kinda just like that video and just like all the talk around that time kinda just connected all of us as, women's basketball players. We all were like, "Oh, hey, like, this is something that we all collectively deal with on the daily." This is an issue that we have and gifting and whatever it may be when you play women's basketball, you know that you're gonna face inequities, and all these girls had been. And so, talking to other athletes, we talked to Stanford players and Baylor players, and like we were all like, oh my goodness, this is something that we're all dealing with, and we kind of just all banded together, right, and to spread this message. And they all got behind me, which is such a blessing that I was able to push for this and be at the forefront of it. But yeah, just kind of all united us and brought us together behind one message, which is amazing.
And I think that's a really important point to highlight for athletes and parents listening is there's a power in the group. There's a power in uniting that no matter how big of a star you are, you'll never have on your own as much power to speak and push change as you do as a group. And in history, there's been a lot of leagues at the pro level where the star athletes who had a lot more to lose and much less to gain were willing to sacrifice and be a part of the group, and it got everyone together. And by uniting, you can push change, you can raise awareness, and that's what y'all did.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the only way that we see real change being made in this world is a group of people standing for one thing, and there's power. I mean, significant power in that, right? My video, it was awesome, but if we didn't have athletes like Steph Curry or all of us banding together, it would have gotten nowhere. It wouldn't have made the impact that it did because people really saw how upset we were, how angry we were, and like how much inequity we've been facing, and that's what really just like triggered that fire in other people to be like, oh wow, now I want to stand up for them. I want to join this group of people leading, holding together, being together, united, because I want to make change with them. Yeah, it was inspiring to watch everyone just unite behind this one issue.
And for us at athletes.org, I mean, that's what we're working on every day, and you're seeing it real time as a player rep for TCU women's basketball. Having athletes join one group is what is going to give us the biggest opportunity here in the future to push more change, which we're going to get to what the future could look like in a little bit. I want to go back. So you and I first met in October 2019 is actually the month. I went back and looked at my pictures from my Eugene trip back in my influencer software days. And I came out and spoke to your team, and Sabrina was still there, and you were a freshman, right? And you took that talk to heart. You told me that years later. In 2020, you did a lot of work during COVID to build your TikTok and eventually your Instagram and your other socials. What inspired that? And talk about that grind because without that platform, what you did in 2021 wouldn't have been seen and wouldn't have went viral.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that talk of branding, and like I had known about it, and I know that I had this power of being a student athlete, but that's the first thing that I was like, oh man, like I can really build my brand. I can have a platform. I can do this as a student athlete, and I was injured at the time, and I had just been my eligibility had been ruled. I couldn't play that next year, and so I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to pour everything that I have into building a brand. A very entrepreneur like mindset. My parents are entrepreneurs, and so I grew up around that world and just building my own business. And so I was like, you know what? I want to just pour everything I have into this and grind it every single day. Like, it is a grind to make content. I was before this weight room March Madness video and stuff. People know me from that, but I had gained 500,000 followers before that from every single day. Posting original content of my height and just my comeback and doing tattoos and trying to build an audience and a brand of who Sedona Prince was off the court, right? And then now that year that I had played and the March Madness was like, okay, who am I now as a player? And so that first meeting I had, I was like, it just expanded my mind of, oh my goodness, this is so much more than just college athletics. I have just such an opportunity while I'm in college to really take advantage of this platform that I have and to make my name known for even when I'm long out of the NCAA.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about it is that is what is so great about NIL. And this was before NIL, the story you're telling in 2019, but social really began the motivation for college athletes to develop new muscles, new skills while they're still playing that when I was a college baseball player, I never developed at all. And that is the muscle of creating a brand, going out and networking, making connections with folks, being able to sell yourself and who you are and why you should do a deal with me, right? Like those things are beautiful because they will help athletes after they're playing for the rest of their lives. And you were able to really cultivate that during such a really crucial time.
Yeah, I mean, I had been like, you say networking and stuff. Like, I had loved that even before I started on social media. I remember my freshman year of college, I went to the University of Texas, and I had broke my leg. Was just very like, oh man, I don't have any sports. And I remember going to an Oracle meeting with my upperclassmen, our master students, and I was the youngest kid there as a freshman, and I was just like wanting to meet people and like, talking about getting a job at Oracle one day, but like, I was just like wanting to get out and meet people and start a business, and I didn't know how to do it. And then when socials came around and TikTok started to blow up, I was like, oh man, now this is a way that I can see it as a business instead of a social media platform, and that's what kind of inspired me. But I had been doing this like I love business and I love the entrepreneurship of it. And so yeah, the once you came to talk to us, that's when it sparked, and I was like, oh man, this could be something cool.
Well, what you did to take action after I talked to y'all is unbelievable because you go back to building a platform where you have six-figure following and then having the guts and creativity to share what you shared about the inequities in 2021. And now you fast forward to today, where an average of 6 million people were watching each of the four Elite Eight games for the Women's March Madness tournament this past weekend. One of those games had more than 15 million average viewers, which of course was the LSU Iowa showdown. And I mean, women's basketball is in a place that it's never been before. And I believe that the catalytic moment started in 2021. And of course, there was other things that had to develop. Obviously, having star players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, et cetera, are very important as well. But talk about what it's like seeing women's basketball be where it's at today versus where it was in 2021.
Oh, Jim, man, it's beautiful, man. Like to watch, my sport growing up, I've, watched Brianna Stewart and all these players in the NCAA and just been like, oh man, like this is college hoops at its finest, like this is where I want to be and just like, oh my God, this sport's amazing. And oh man, it's so beautiful especially because, we were in a place in our sport, it was so frustrating. We're like at that wall, we were like, we know that our game deserves so much love, so much attention. Like we can see it, we can feel it. Like we're almost there, was on the cusp of it. And whether it's that moment or something else, like within those few years, it was like, all this attention was being brought to our sport, and now to see it, where it's at, it's unbelievable that now we're finally here. We've made it, and we're still pushing. It's not over. That it's not over until we're no longer fighting for equity. But man, it's such a beautiful sight to see. I love it. All the memes and stuff on social media. It's like this is what we need. All this talk about our game is amazing.
Well, shifting to where we are today, not just with women's basketball and the explosion of it, but also with college athletics in general, and ultimately with the college athletics revenue model and allocation to all the different stakeholders, which athletes are one of. Um, there are a lot of court cases going on right now. And once again, they're against the NCAA. Now, the only reason you and I even know each other is because Ed O'Bannon had the guts to go at the NCAA around name, image, and likeness. And that case and the decision for O'Bannon in that case is really what gave me the beginnings of what became influencer. And, our theory back then in 2017 was NIL is not a matter of if, but when it's going to happen. And O'Bannon is writing on the wall for NIL. So let's help athletes with social and brand building through school partnerships, and let's be in a place to help with NIL when that happens, right? So the same type of catalyst for influencer with O'Bannon was the catalyst for me and Brandon Copeland in starting athletes.org. And it was cases like Johnson versus the NCAA, or the NLRB cases against the NCAA, or the House versus NCAA case, which you are one of the plaintiffs in that case. And so that case in particular has a lot to do with media revenue that's been generated by especially women's basketball, men's basketball, and football athletes over the past decade. And it's a class going backwards that will recoup some of the money that they helped generate. Could be as much as $4.2 billion. I'm just quoting news articles. And so that will also set precedents moving forward, which we hope to help the leaders at the school and conference and NCAA level negotiate with those women's basketball, men's basketball, and football athletes for what terms could look like to share that media revenue in the future with those athletes. But talk about, that's our involvement. That's my involvement through athletes.org with all this. You're one of the plaintiffs. So, like, what does that entail? What got you into the case to become a plaintiff? And what can you say about it?
Yeah, so when I transferred from the University of Texas, I got an injury, and I transferred for health and safety reasons, and just felt like there's a lot of malpractice at my university, and I didn't feel like, I'd been treated as what as I should have been as a student athlete, and I just felt very very upset about it. And so as I had transferred, I didn't get to play again. The NCAA ruled me ineligible. And so more of that anger, I was just like, man, all these adults around me that are supposed to be taking care of me are not. And it's so unfair. And this is not how it should be. And so my mom had the opportunity. He reached out to one of the people in, the College Players Association, a different one, right? That he just connected with us, and he said, hey, would you like to be a plaintiff in this House versus NCAA lawsuit? And I had no idea about it. I was like, what is NIL? What does that even mean? But I've already been taken advantage of so much that, I'm upset at the NCAA. Absolutely sign me up. I want to be a part of this in any way I can. And so I had no idea that it would be this, and no idea that it would turn into this, and that it would be a catalyst for this much change. But I just wanted to just make it change somehow, right? And put my name into use my name image like this in some way, and try to push for change. And so I joined the lawsuit, and pretty much it's, I constantly get documents seized, and I'm giving them my own, information into NIL and what my deals look like, and all these things, and giving them my information, right? And then I had a deposition with the NCAA, and so sat in front of them for 7 hours straight, in front of 4 NCAA lawyers, and was deposed and asked about NIL and my thoughts and everything, which was a crazy experience that I'll have, be able to talk about one day in my life. But yeah, now it's for, as this lawsuit goes to trial in 2025, right? It's about, all right, now how can we get as much attention around it as possible? How can we're hopefully pushing for, everything to go our way, and for this, the floodgates to stay open, right? To this be a permanent law, NIL to be, we are able to use NIL forever. But then to also push for, okay, now what other things are an issue in NCAA, and how do we kind of attach this on, but also just let's just fix everything in one fell swoop, right? Let's just like get it all done, and so then we can continue, in the NCAA, just making money and profiting, but also having athletes not being taken advantage of and injured, and getting taken in any single way. So that's kind of my involvement. I can't talk much about it, but yeah, it's been a blessing to be a part of it, and it's such an amazing opportunity that I'll be able to have as my story forever.
It's amazing, and just kind of progressing through your story, how the work you did building your brand, the work you've done as a player on the court, the work that you've done to continue championing women's basketball, the work you've done now with NIL, with brands, and all the deals that you've done, has all led you to a place where you have the opportunity to do something that will make history. And that's amazing. And I think as we look at where the future of college athletics needs to go, everybody immediately goes to like revenue sharing and employment status. And I think that those can be paralyzing sometimes because there's a lot of technicalities around employment being good or bad. You hear a lot of things thrown around pertaining to employment of college athletes versus them being the status they are today. Uh, with revenue sharing, I think it's very simple. A percentage of gross revenue needs to be negotiated for revenue producing athletes to be able to negotiate their own deals from that piece of the pie. And so if the school and or conference can create a standard that the athletes agree to for gross revenue percentage to go to these athletes that produce this revenue, the math is there. And then from there, you have to have other standards like minimum and maximum and ranges that would be established. You have to address all the other things like Title IX and such. But ultimately, that's the basics of the math that needs to be figured out. And we say this all the time when we're talking to leaders on the college athletics side. Outside of revenue sharing is what I want to talk more about with college athletics future, and that is the benefit side of things. We're seeing conferences realign in ways that we've never saw before. Your old school, Oregon, is now in the Big Ten, and they're going to be playing games against Maryland on a weeknight. And so there is a reality with travel, with hourage spent on your sport versus school, with requirements academically that still exist, with medical coverage, mental health. I could keep going. Every athlete, every sport, revenue producing or profitable or not profitable, needs to have better standards in these categories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you see, I mean, just being the life of a student athlete, it's not it's so hard to describe unless you're in it, right? But it is a full-time job. You are a full-time student, and your sport, wherever you play, it's your full-time job. You're there at practice for 4 to 5 hours a day. Then you have homework, and then you go back for film and treatment and rehab and getting extra shots up. Like, it is a constant thing that you're in every single day, and it's year round. And so, absolutely. I mean, there should be, in my opinion, right? And I have a lot of opinions about this, but why not just, split it up to where there's, north, south, east, west, right? They talk about that and how easy that would be, right? Of just like, because it's how we do it in the NCAA, right? Or the tournament. It's broken up that way. So yeah, I mean, there should be regulations on so many different things, but I think the main thing in that, Jim, is if we all stand together as student athletes, and if we are now having a voice at the table, right? Like, that's how we can come to real change. That's how we can sit down with the NCAA and make changes that have never been done before, because we're the ones that are in the student athlete life. We're the ones having to do homework and having to travel all the way across the country to play a game, and then all the way back to make it to class. So why wouldn't we be allowed to sit at the table with them and say, hey, let's just come to common ground, saying, this is what we want, this is our life, what we're dealing with, and then let's negotiate here and there, right? To say this makes sense, money wise and stuff, like, real negotiations. And for us all as student athletes to really just band together and know that we need change, and we need something, now, that this is happening right now.
And what's the best way to do that?
I mean, through AO, right? Like it's we've been waiting for I truly, Jim. It's I'm not because you're a personal friend of mine and we've known each other for a long time, but seriously, what you guys have done is create the platform for the first time that all student athletes can talk to each other and can have resources that we've never been able to have that we've been I've had to find second opinions outside of my school for my injury, and had to go and pay for my own surgery because I didn't trust the medical team that we had at university. And so for me to pay, it was almost $100,000, right, out of my pocket to go get this second surgery and to get a second opinion. But it's my health for the rest of my life. Even after I'm playing sports, I will have my elbow that I need to carry my kids and stuff. And so if I had a second opinion through AO and was able to have those services and all the different things that come with that, even through the first year of NIL, right? I got taken advantage of so much and made so many mistakes because it was just like a free for all, do whatever, make as many brand deals as you want. And there was no regulations on it. And so now to have a platform like AO and to be able to like have those resources for free and for student athletes just have one place, right, where we can just log into an app and have anything we need for help or whatever, has truly been, that is that's how we're going to do it, right? A players association. And so I think it's amazing. I'm so excited to be a part of it, and to keep pushing for change. I think it's what we've needed for a very, very long time. And I'm glad that we have so many good people behind it as well. But I mean, that's what this is what is going to be the biggest catalyst for this new change coming.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and also, that's always what the vision's been, and not just to offer you and every athlete that's a member the support that you mentioned through our member app and our benefits platform, but also you talked about a seat at the table. You talked about voice earlier, and that's probably the biggest reason we want all athletes to sign up and be a part of AO is with the more than 2,500 athletes we have as of the beginning of April 2024, we are able to really get engaged with them easier than we ever expected, to the point where, this past week in Phoenix, we sat down with more than 10 of our athletes across women's basketball, men's basketball, football, Olympic sports. And we did that with leaders from college sports, from ADs to commissioners to folks at the NCAA level. Nobody's been able to do that in the history of college athletics pertaining to these topics. And that's not because of us. That's because we have you and your peers uniting. And so that's my call to athletes is unite, become a team rep for your team, help get your teammates signed up, because the more you unite, the more we can do those kinds of things.
And the more you see, I think the most beautiful thing is student athletes being empowered, right? And that's what we saw a lot during the March Madness, that weight room video and stuff. Is we were all empowered because we got so much support and so much love, but also we all banded together and we were like, hey, this is, we have a right to make change. We have a right to use our voice in this. And so now we're seeing way more and more, student athletes all across the country being like, hey, this is my image and likeness. It's what I want to protect it. This is mine. I deserve this. I deserve a seat at the table to talk about my life, my experience as a student athlete, and to then come together and be like, not only just banding together, but being an empowered group of student athletes with one common mission, fighting for the same goal, is we're going to be the most, strong, powerful force I think in a very long time. And this within this next, year is gonna be amazing. But even just the past things we've been doing has been beautiful to see.
Now, I want to shift to experience that you've had with NIL, but also the transfer portal, because you've used the transfer portal. We've seen a lot of athletes use it as basically an annual free agency opportunity to see what their value could be. And that's what NIL has become for the most part. You do real NIL as well, which is awesome. The brands, the endorsements. But I mean, let's face it, NIL is donors laundering money to, be associated with their school and attract players to transfer. And we've heard stories of players getting offered X, going to a school because of that, and then getting paid 0.5x instead of X, right? And so, what are some what happens in the portal once you go in there, and not just based on your experiences, but other athletes, you don't have to name names. What goes on in there for the athlete once you get in and join?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the portal twice. First year was when I broke my leg at Texas, and had to transfer, and that was when there was no transfer rule, or there wasn't the transfer rule that you could not play the next year, and so I had to automatically sit. But and then my second year transferring when I came to TCU, I was in the WNBA or the draft portal, and then also the NCAA portal at the same time, which is kind of unique. But yeah, you pretty much put your name in the in this, I guess, talk to compliance at your school and university, put your name, sign this waiver, and then within 24 hours or 48, depends on the school, you are in the portal. Your name is there, and your contact information is there if you want it, so that universities can reach out to you, can say, hey, we want to recruit you, blah blah blah, so and so, and so it's kind of just this big, I guess, pool of student athletes that you can go after, that you can throw money at. And so, yeah, my experience is much different. I did not get paid to come to TCU, right? I've gotten offers to transfer places that have been, massive and just life changing. But I decided in my first year through NIL that I would never, I guess, I don't know, never go to a school, never transfer, never change who I am because of a certain dollar amount, right? Like my basketball journey is something that I just want to be proud of and look back as like I worked as hard as I can. I did something amazing, and I didn't just get bought out to go somewhere. But again, every student athlete's journey is different, and there's no disrespect or hate to anybody that chooses differently, right? It's just a different experience that everyone goes through with NIL and different opportunities we have. And everyone's just trying to make as much as we can in these 4 or 5 years that we have, so that when we do go pro, or if we even have the chance, that we can have this money that was saved for the rest of our lives and not have to, to continue playing our sport for years and years and years, and beating up on our bodies, that we've taken advantage of NIL as much as we can.
Who's making those offers? The coaches?
Um, it's usually collectives. And so, yeah, and
So are coaches making an intro to a collective and then you talk to the collective and they say, "Hey, this is what we could do for you?"
yeah, so I'll usually talk to like agents and stuff, right? Agents will hit you up, and they don't have to be your agent. It can just be any random agent. And an NIL agent, we talk about that too, is like it could be anyone. So literally anyone could just hit you up representing a collective. And the collective that I work with was some school, because I was interested to be like, all right, what is the ins and outs of me if I transfer to the school, right? And just say, hey, I'm transferring and wear the jersey one time, I get this lump sum of money. And so had talked about it and stuff, but the coach had said she knew whatever, like she was kind of in it, but she had just been told by the collective, hey, we're going to go out and get as many star players as possible. And it was a new coach, and we're going to get as many athletes as possible and get them as much money with this whatever sum that these donors have given us, this amount of money. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of got that offer. But I was like, it's not for me. I don't want to transfer here anyways. So
Well, I love it. I love that money is not the number one thing. It's a byproduct of your passion. And so with your passion to be the best ball player you can be and be the best entrepreneur you can be, money becomes a byproduct and you're still making great money, but it's not what drives you. And I love that about you. And I know that's real. And it's just interesting to me because the reality is the NCAA only has a few rules about NIL, and one of them is that you cannot induce a recruit or a prospective student athlete is the term to come to your institution using NIL, but yet that's what NIL, the majority of it, has become. And in some cases, coaches we know are actually talking number amounts with athletes, and in other cases, there's a workaround like you described. And I was just curious what your experience had been.
yeah, I've heard from different stories from like friends in the NCAA and stuff, and it's very kind of hush hush right now because it is things that rules are getting broken, and there aren't a lot of restrictions on it at all, right? It's very just a fine, very blurred lines of, okay, we can do this and donors can do this and this, and so right now, I mean, I say for student athletes, take advantage of everything as much as you can, right? Like get your bag in a sense, but be very, very, very careful. And in the behind the scenes, right, we're trying to just make it to where student athletes are not getting taken advantage of anymore. If you do transfer somewhere and you do deserve an amount of money that you're going to get paid to go there, right? Like you need to see that money. And then also when you go there, make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, right? You're not just going to get pushed aside or immediately thrown out. And so then that kind of work is done behind the scenes, but also with all these athletes uniting together and being like, hey, this could happen to any of us. This is a real issue going on. My friends are going to take advantage of whatever. These are real issues that are happening now, and so fighting for the change and making these laws so where this stuff doesn't happen anymore, and there aren't any blurred lines and rules broken, right?
And 2 points on that. Number 1, um, they could not get paid what they were promised. We're seeing that happen. But number 2, they could sign a contract that locks them in with caps on how much they get paid per autograph for a certain amount of autographs and not be able to increase that rate until they've reached that cap. And we're seeing these contracts have perpetuity clauses and other types of clauses that are capping athletes um, because they're giving them an upfront amount of money. So there's multiple ways that you as an athlete, and I'm talking athletes and parents, could be taken advantage of with an NIL deal that you're being offered, whether you're in the portal or you're a high school athlete, that you need to be aware of. And then ironically, another point I want to make is the main athletes that are getting collective money are women's basketball, men's basketball, and football, which happen to be the same damages classes highlighted by Wilkin, the judge in the House versus NCAA case. And the reason is because that's where almost all of the media revenue comes from. And the reality is that you can't win without talent. And right now, the donors are paying the bill for the talent. I'm quoting Jay Billis from episode 1. So, the sustainability of this is definitely in question.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing you got to think about, right, is that I feel like a lot of people they know, but they really don't keep it in the forefront of their mind. Is that the NCAA is a business, right? Like this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that student athletes are running, and that we are the this machine of this massive organization across the whole country, one of the biggest, obviously amateur sports organization in the country. There's really no other that's making money like this. And so, as a, to my employment status, whatever you want to go into conversations about that, but that you have to remember that this is a multi million dollar, if not billion dollar industry that we're not making a cent from. We're not seeing any money from. And so obviously when we're making, you're right, so there's a certain breakdown that is highlighted in the House versus NCAA lawsuit. That I don't know if I can even say, but it's football first, right? They're the ones making money. They're the ones we see on this whatever the bowl games and stuff. Those are the ones generating the most money for the NCAA, and then men's basketball and then women's basketball, which is amazing that we're there. I love that. But those are the three sports keeping everything afloat, right? And so where's our check? And so a lot of student athletes are getting upset about it, right? Are getting angry and saying like, hey, we're making you so much money. We're keeping these other sports alive too. And so, how do we make it to where it's fair, right? Like it's only fair to, we go out every single day and we work this hard and we're, on these screens getting 15 million viewers, right? Like where is our compensation from that? It's just not fair.
Absolutely. And my prediction is this is the last March Madness where that revenue won't be shared. And so we're fighting the good fight together, and we're fighting it in a way that can be a win-win-win for everyone, including the leaders in the schools, if it's done the right way. And that's what I love, and I can go to bed at night knowing. And I appreciate you, just your story. It was so awesome to hear you tell it again today, and for the people listening or watching to be able to really soak in like how you got to the point you are today, where you're changing history. And so, thank you so much for making time for us, and thank you for being such a big part of what we're building at athletes.org.
Yeah, Jim. Of course, thank you so much. I mean, we've been, talking for a while in each other's lives. So thank you so much for what you've done. Seriously, like, I will. I'm now a part of AO, and I'm so proud to be. But I will fully back this and spread this message through you guys and with you guys for the rest of my life, because it is something that's important. So thank you for fighting the right fight. I really appreciate it. There's not a lot of people out there that are doing this. So thank you as well, Jim. I appreciate you.
Amazing stuff from Sedona. So happy that she was able to make time for this interview, but also that she's making time for cases like House versus the NCAA, for causes like athletes.org, to be a team rep. Eh, She, she doesn't have to do that. Sedona makes very good money with NIL, and really is still a prospect at the professional level who's going to make more money playing women's basketball. But yet she wants to be a part of these conversations. And there's others that I know are listening or watching that want to be a part of these conversations. And so make sure you follow us on Instagram at Now It's Legal Pod. DM us if you or somebody you know should be on this show doing an interview about these topics. We want to have more conversations with everyone. And we're going to bring on college athletics leaders, whether it's coaches, ADs, commissioners. We're going to bring on parents of college athletes, current college athletes, former college athletes. We're going to bring on all kinds of folks who are stakeholders in this future of this wonderful industry of college athletics. And so share the podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. Just search Now It's Legal with Jim Cavale, and you should be able to find it. You also can check us out on YouTube and subscribe there if you want to watch the show and watch me interact with our guests. Just search Now It's Legal with Jim Cavale on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening and watching today. We'll be back with some really exciting episodes here each week with Now It's Legal.